All right. So, uh, there's always this sort of, fascination around how these like power dynamics shift, right?
Right.
And there's some interesting buzz lately suggesting that there might be a bit of a cooling
Yeah.
in the relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Interesting.
So our deep dive today is going to focus on
Oh, okay.
a report from the Ring of Fire YouTube channel.
Okay.
And they do a whole analysis of this idea that Musk is being kind of iced out of the West Wing. It paints a picture that, that initial connection they had
Right.
might be running into some headwinds.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially, when you're dealing with these individuals who operate at such a high level in completely different spheres.
Absolutely.
How quickly these alliances can form and how quickly they can dissolve.
Yeah. It's really fascinating to watch it play out.
It is.
So this report dives into this claim, that Elon Musk will not have an office
Oh, wow.
in the West Wing itself.
Right.
Like the very heart of presidential operations.
Yeah.
Instead, the word is he'd be situated across the street
Across the street.
in the Eisenhower building.
Interesting.
Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the layout of D.C., the source we're looking at really emphasizes that this isn't just like a minor geographical difference. It can actually carry real weight
I was going to say,
in terms of access and influence.
that's a key point in Washington, that proximity often translates into access.
Absolutely.
Being able to just be part of those crucial conversations.
Yeah, those informal ones.
The informal ones that shape policy and decisions.
Right.
Being even a short distance away
Right.
can be a significant difference
It's huge.
in how easily one can engage with that inner circle.
Yeah. And the individual identified in this report as being central to this whole icing out thing is Donald Trump's chief of staff,
Interesting.
Susie Wiles.
Okay.
The source even calls her the Ice Maiden.
Okay.
We learned that she was the co-director of Trump's campaign and has now taken on this critical role
Right.
as chief of staff in the administration.
It's that chief of staff position is absolutely pivotal.
Oh, it's so important.
They're essentially the gatekeeper to the president, managing his schedule, controlling access, shaping the flow of information he receives.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense that this position would be so instrumental in determining the extent of Musk's integration into the administration's workings, day-to-day workings.
Now, the transcript we're looking at does mention briefly a reported pay difference between Wiles and her male counterpart
Okay.
during the campaign, though it doesn't go into too much detail.
Gotcha.
What the source really focuses on is this idea that Wiles brings a certain professionalism to the Trump operation.
Okay.
And the core argument here is that she is the one who wants to limit Musk's
Interesting.
constant direct access to the president. That's really interesting to consider, right?
It is.
Like, what kind of environment is the administration aiming to cultivate?
Yeah.
Are they trying to, establish a more traditional, structured operation?
Right.
And is Musk perceived as like a potentially disruptive element to that goal?
That seems to be a big part of the analysis here.
That's a significant part of what they're presenting.
Yeah.
They argue that keeping Musk somewhat removed might actually be a strategically sound move.
Okay.
Their reasoning.
Interesting.
The transcript doesn't really hold back here.
Okay.
They suggest that Musk has a tendency to humiliate Trump.
Oh, wow.
Even alluding to something that happened just a week ago. Though they don't specify what the event was.
Interesting.
But it points to a concern about these unpredictable public statements or actions that could negatively impact the president's image.
Makes sense.
The source uses some pretty strong terms, too.
Okay.
They call Musk an embarrassment.
Oh, wow.
And a loose cannon.
Right.
And they argue that you just don't want that kind of unpredictability constantly around the president.
Yeah, you got to think about the high stakes involved in presidential communications.
Oh, absolutely.
Any little misstep or unexpected statement can have huge political ramifications.
Absolutely.
So maintaining a degree of control over the narrative is usually a key objective for any administration.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really fascinating.
Okay.
Because the same source then goes on to argue that this icing out could also be a stupid move.
Oh, interesting.
The logic here is that someone like Musk, precisely because he's viewed as this loose cannon, actually needs to be kept on a very short leash.
Oh, so the opposite.
They're worried that being across the street in the Eisenhower building might actually give him more freedom to act independently.
More freedom.
Yeah.
Not less oversight.
Not less.
So it's almost like this inherent dilemma.
Exactly.
In managing these relationships with people who operate outside the traditional political sphere.
Right.
How do you leverage their potential benefits?
Yeah, their influence.
Their influence.
Their innovative thinking, but without exposing yourself to the risks that come with their unconventional approaches.
Exactly. And that physical distance almost becomes symbolic of that broader question of control and influence.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And the transcript even gives us a specific example of this potential for friction.
Okay.
Apparently, Musk has already caused some waves.
Oh, it happened?
By disagreeing with Trump on the issue of AI investment. He reportedly said something like, no, we can't do this massive AI investment. There's no money.
Oh, wow.
And the report suggests that this really angered Trump and other Republicans.
Oh, so?
So their argument is if he's already creating these kinds of disagreements and frustrations from a relative distance, what could happen if he's even further removed from that direct day-to-day engagement?
Makes you wonder.
And potential influence within the West Wing.
Yeah, this example really shows
the potential for clashes in policy priorities.
Right.
I mean, someone like Musk, he has his own significant business interests.
Right. And a very distinct worldview.
And a distinct worldview.
Right.
And aligning those with the more politically driven agenda of a presidential administration can be tricky.
It can be very tricky.
Yeah.
Now, the source brings up this third option.
Okay.
That they don't believe was seriously considered.
Okay.
Which is basically just excluding Musk
from
any formal role and close involvement with the administration altogether.
Wow.
The rationale is pretty clear.
Yeah, I can see that.
Avoid the potential pitfalls of having him too close. And the risks of him operating too independently at a distance.
It's like a clean break scenario.
Right.
Just the potential downsides of involving such a powerful, independent figure.
Outweigh any perceived benefits.
Yeah.
Regardless of where he sits.
Right.
Literally and figuratively.
Exactly. However, the source seems pretty skeptical that this option was ever really on the table. And they point specifically to Musk's influence. And they even mention his ownership of Twitter.
Oh, right. X now.
Or X.
Yeah.
The implication being that his ability to communicate with such a huge audience gives him this level of power.
So much power.
And visibility that any administration would have to consider.
It's a crucial point in today's media landscape.
Right.
People with massive social media platforms, they wield so much influence and their potential to both amplify support and generate criticism can be a huge factor
Absolutely.
for political leaders.
So when we pull all this together, the source we've been looking at concludes that this whole situation is somewhat of a self-created mess to the administration, and the outcome remains uncertain.
Right.
They actually end with a pretty direct thought.
Yeah.
Maybe in a smart way.
Okay.
Maybe in a stupid way.
Right.
I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, that really kind of sums it up.
It does.
It's that inherent unpredictability.
Right.
You know, when you're dealing with individuals who are as powerful and operate as independently as Trump and Musk.
Right.
The motivations and the strategic considerations on both sides are likely so intricate and constantly in flux.
So hard to even predict what's going to happen.
Right.
All right. So to quickly recap.
Yeah.
We've been looking at this report suggesting that Elon Musk is being iced out of the West Wing by Chief of Staff Susie Wiles.
Right.
We looked at the argument that this might be a smart move to prevent potential embarrassment, but also the counter argument that it could backfire by giving Musk too much space.
Yeah, too much freedom.
Right, to do his thing.
Right. And we even touched on that third option of just complete exclusion.
Clean break.
Right, which our source didn't think was very likely.
Didn't seem like it.
Right.
So bringing this back to you, what's really interesting is this tightrope walk.
It's a tough one.
Involved in managing relationships between, these really influential, often unconventional figures.
Yeah.
And the more established structures of political power.
It's a tough needle to thread.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our final thought for today.
Okay.
Reflecting on all this analysis.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are the biggest challenges in navigating the influence of individuals like Elon Musk within a political administration?
It really makes you think about
how power, personality, and policy all intersect in the world of government.
It really does.
It raises these important questions about the nature of political influence, especially in an era where individuals can command such a huge audience.
Yeah, just on their own.
And exert so much pressure outside the traditional channels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think about all that.
Right.
Consider the different perspectives we've talked about.
Okay.
And draw your own conclusions on this fascinating situation.
Okay.
Until our next deep dive.
I'll be here.
All right, take care.
See ya.
Bye.